The November wind cut through 14-year-old Deshaun's thin jacket like a knife. He pulled it tighter around himself and kept walking, his worn-out sneakers making soft sounds against the sidewalk. In his pocket, he could feel the crumpled bills from his shift at the corner grocery store. $32. Not much, but it would help his mom pay part of the electric bill this month. Deshaun worked every day after school, stocking shelves and helping customers carry their bags. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and his mom had always taught him that honest work was nothing to be ashamed of. His hands still smelled like the cleaning solution he'd used to mop the floors before closing time. The usual route home took about 45 minutes on foot. They used to have a car back when his dad was alive, but that old Honda had finally given up the ghost last year. Now it was buses and walking saved money on bus fare. Tonight, Deshaun decided to cut through the nicer part of town. It would save him 15 minutes, and he was tired. His legs ached, and he had homework waiting for him at home. The neighborhood he walked through now was different from his own. The houses here were huge, with perfect lawns and fancy cars in the driveways. Street lights actually worked here. The sidewalks didn't have cracks and potholes. It was like a different world, just a few miles from where he lived. That's when he saw it. A sleek black Mercedes sedan sitting on the side of the road with its hazard lights blinking. The car looked expensive, really expensive. The kind of car Deshaun had only seen in movies or driving past his neighborhood. Standing next to it was an older white man in a dark suit that probably cost more than Deshaun's mom made in a month. The man was on his phone, and he looked frustrated. Deshaun slowed down as he got closer. He could see the problem. The back tire was completely flat, sitting there sad and deflated against the curb. The man was pacing back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing in the air like he was arguing with someone. Deshaun knew he should probably just keep walking. It was getting dark, and his mom would worry if he was too late. Plus, a black kid in a nice neighborhood after dark stopping to talk to a stranger? That could go wrong in so many ways. He'd heard enough stories, seen enough news reports. His mom had given him the talk more than once about being careful, about how people might perceive him. But something made him stop. Maybe it was the way his dad used to help people, always stopping to lend a hand to neighbors and strangers alike. Maybe it was just who Deshaun was. He couldn't walk past someone who needed help, even if it made him uncomfortable. "Excuse me, sir," Deshaun said, his voice a little uncertain. "You got a flat tire there. Need some help?" The man turned around, and Deshaun could see the surprise on his face. The man's eyes quickly scanned Deshaun, taking in the grocery store uniform shirt, the worn jacket, the old backpack. There was a moment of hesitation, a flicker of something in the man's eyes. Doubt, maybe. Or caution. "I'm waiting for roadside assistance," the man said, his tone formal and distant. "They said they'd be here in 90 minutes. Deshaun glanced at the tire, then at the man's expensive shoes that definitely weren't made for changing tires. "That's a long wait, sir. I can change it for you if you want. Probably take me about 20 minutes. The man looked at him again, this time really looking. "You know how to change a tire?" "Yes, sir. I've changed plenty of them. My mom's car used to break down all the time before it finally died. I learned how to do basic stuff on it. YouTube is a pretty good teacher." Deshaun tried to smile, to seem less threatening, more trustworthy. There was another long pause. Deshaun could almost see the wheels turning in the man's head. Could he trust this kid? Was this some kind of setup? But maybe the man was desperate. Or maybe he saw something genuine in Deshaun's face because he finally nodded. "All right," the man said. "The spare should be in the trunk." Deshaun set his backpack down on the sidewalk and walked to the back of the Mercedes. The man popped the trunk with his key fob, and Deshaun lifted the carpeted floor panel to find the spare tire in the jack. Everything was pristine, probably never been used. The spare tire still had that new rubber smell. He pulled out the equipment and got to work. The man stood off to the side, still on his phone, occasionally glancing over at Deshaun. The boy could feel the eyes on him, that familiar weight of being watched, being judged. He was used to it in stores, the way security guards would follow him down the aisles even though he'd never stolen anything in his life. Deshaun positioned the jack under the car frame, exactly where his dad had taught him years ago. "Always find the reinforced spot," his dad used to say. "Put it in the wrong place and you'll damage the car." That memory made Deshaun's chest tight, but he pushed through it and started pumping the jack handle. The Mercedes rose slowly off the ground. Deshaun worked methodically, his hands steady despite the cold. He loosened the lug nuts, pulled off the flat tire, and rolled it aside. The tire was heavy and awkward, but he managed it. His arms were tired from work, but he didn't let that show. "You do this often?" the man asked, having finished his phone call. "Used to, sir. Like I said, my mom's old Honda was always having problems. Flat tires, dead battery, overheating. I learned to fix what I could because mechanics are expensive." Deshaun lifted the spare tire and aligned it with the bolts, pushing it into place. "What about your father? He didn't teach you?" Deshaun's hands paused for just a second. "He did, sir. He taught me a lot before he passed away. 3 years ago." "I'm sorry to hear that," the man said, and his voice had softened a little. "Thank you, sir." Deshaun tightened the lug nuts, working in a star pattern like his dad had shown him. Tighten one, then the one across from it, then move to the next. It keeps the wheel balanced. As he worked, they started talking. The man seemed curious about him, asking questions that felt genuine rather than suspicious. Deshaun told him about school, about how he was managing straight A's despite working 15 hours a week. He talked about his favorite subjects, especially math and science. "What do you want to do? After high school, I mean?" the man asked. Deshaun looked up from the tire, surprised by the question. Most adults didn't ask him about his future like it was something real and possible. "I want to be an engineer, sir. I want to design things that help people, like better solar panels or wind turbines, or maybe electric cars that regular people can actually afford." The man raised his eyebrows. "That's ambitious." "Maybe," Deshaun said, lowering the car back down with the jack. "But somebody's got to do it, right? Might as well be me." He tightened the lug nuts one final time now that the car's weight was back on the wheel. Then he stood up, wiping his greasy hands on his jeans. They were already old and stained anyway. "One more mark wouldn't matter. All done, sir. You should get that flat tire fixed or replaced soon. This spare isn't meant for long-term driving. And don't go too fast on it." The man walked over and inspected the tire, bending down to look at Deshaun's work. When he stood back up, there was something different in his expression. Respect, maybe. He pulled out his wallet and took out several bills. "Here, for your time." Deshaun shook his head and stepped back. "No, sir. I don't want your money. You just spent 20 minutes helping a complete stranger. Let me pay you for your time." "I didn't help you for money, sir." Deshaun picked up his backpack and shouldered it. "I helped because you needed help. That's what people should do for each other." The man stared at him, the money still in his hand. He looked like someone had just spoken to him in a foreign language. "What's your name, son?" "Deshaun, sir." "Deshaun Miller." "Well, Deshaun, I'm Robert Caldwell." The man extended his hand and Deshaun shook it. Robert's grip was firm. "Do you have a phone number? I might know of some opportunities that could interest you." Deshaun hesitated. This felt weird. Strange men didn't usually ask teenage boys for their phone numbers, and nothing good came from that in the stories he'd heard. But something about Robert seemed genuine. And besides, what opportunities could a kid like Deshaun have that a man like this would know about? Still, his mom had taught him to be polite and to never close doors on possibilities. He found a pen in his backpack and wrote his number on an old receipt, handing it to Robert. "Thank you again for the help," Robert said, tucking the receipt into his wallet carefully. "I won't forget this." Deshaun nodded and started walking away. As he turned the corner, he looked back once. Robert was still standing there by his Mercedes watching him go. Deshaun didn't think much of it. Rich people were weird sometimes. He probably wouldn't ever hear from the man again. He picked up his pace. He was now 30 minutes later than usual, and his mom would be worried. The wind seemed colder now, and his hands were stiff and dirty. But as he walked through the dark streets toward home, Deshaun felt okay. Tired, but okay. He'd done a good thing tonight. His dad would have been proud. He had no idea that everything was about to change. 3 days passed, and Deshaun had almost forgotten about the man with the Mercedes. Almost, but not quite. It was hard to forget something that unusual, even if he didn't expect anything to come from it. Life went on the way it always did. School, work, homework, sleep, repeat. On Thursday afternoon, Deshaun was in the middle of his chemistry class when his PH-1 buzzed in his pocket. They weren't supposed to have phones out during class, but he felt it vibrate and ignored it. Probably a spam call anyway. Those seemed to be the only calls he ever got. After class, he checked his phone in the hallway. Unknown number. There was a voicemail. Deshaun almost deleted it without listening. Spam callers were getting creative these days, even leaving fake voicemails, but something made him press play. "Hello, Deshaun. This is Robert Caldwell. We met the other night when you helped me with my tire. I was wondering if you and your mother might be available to meet me for coffee on Saturday morning. I'd like to discuss something with you both. Please call me back at this number if you're interested." Deshaun stood frozen in the hallway, students flowing around him like water around a rock. The man had actually called, and he wanted to meet with him and his mom. That was weird, right? That had to be weird. He listened to the message 2 more times, trying to figure out if it was some kind of scam or prank. But the voice sounded genuine. It was definitely the same man from that night. Deshaun saved the number and spent the rest of the school day distracted, wondering what this could be about. That evening, after his shift at the grocery store, Deshaun told his mom about the call. Tanya Miller was a practical woman who'd raised her son to be careful but not paranoid, hopeful but not naive. She listened to the voicemail herself, her face unreadable. "This feels strange, baby," she said, sitting at their small kitchen table. The table wobbled because one leg was shorter than the others, something they'd been meaning to fix for months. "I don't know about meeting a stranger." "I looked him up online." "Mom," Deshaun said, pulling out his phone. "Robert Caldwell, he's real. He owns this big engineering company downtown. Caldwell Engineering Solutions, they do work all over the Midwest." Tanya took the phone and scrolled through the search results. There were articles about the company, photos of Robert at business, events, an interview in the business section of the newspaper. He was legitimate, at least that part was real. "What do you think he wants?" she asked, handing the phone back. "I don't know. Maybe he felt bad about not paying me. Maybe he wants to give me a reward or something." Deshaun shrugged. "Or maybe it's nothing. Maybe he just wants to say thanks again." His mother chewed her lip, thinking, "If we meet him, it's in a public place. Somewhere with lots of people around." He suggested coffee. "A coffee shop during Saturday morning rush." "That works." Tanya nodded slowly. "Okay, call him back, tell him we'll meet him. But baby, don't get your hopes up about anything. Rich folks sometimes like to feel good about themselves by doing small kindnesses, but it usually doesn't amount to much." Deshaun understood what she meant. They'd been promised things before. Help that never came. Opportunities that disappeared. It was better not to expect too much from people, especially people who lived in a different world than you did. Saturday morning came cold and bright. Tanya put on her best church dress, and Deshaun wore his only pair of khakis and a button-up shirt his mom had gotten him last Christmas. They took the bus downtown, getting off 3 blocks from the coffee shop Robert had suggested. The cafe was nice, the kind of place where coffee cost $6 and came with fancy designs in the foam. Deshaun and his mom never came to places like this. They got their coffee at the gas station for $1.50. But the place was packed with people on laptops and families with strollers, exactly the kind of public, safe environment Tanya wanted. Robert was already there, sitting at a corner table. He stood up when he saw them, smiling. He was dressed more casually than the night Deshaun had met him, wearing khakis and a sweater, but he still looked expensive. Everything about him looked expensive. "Deshaun, thank you for coming, and you must be Mrs. Miller." Robert extended his hand to Tanya. "Ms. Miller, actually," Tanya corrected gently, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Caldwell." "Please call me Robert. Can I get you both something?" "Coffee, hot chocolate, pastries," they ordered. Though Tanya tried to refuse at first, Robert insisted, and soon they were sitting at the table with elaborate drinks that Deshaun wasn't quite sure how to pronounce, and pastries that looked almost too pretty to eat. "I want to start by thanking your son again," Robert said, looking at Tanya. "What he did the other night, it might seem small to some people, but it meant a lot to me. Not just the help with the tire, but the way he helped. No expectation of reward. Just genuine kindness. I raised him to help people when he can," Tanya said simply. "You raised him well. We talked while he worked, and I was impressed by him. His intelligence, his work ethic, his dreams." Robert paused, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup. "I don't usually do this kind of thing. Actually, I've never done this kind of thing. But I couldn't stop thinking about Deshaun all week. Deshaun shifted uncomfortably in his chair. This felt surreal, sitting in a fancy coffee shop with a millionaire who was talking about him like he was special. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Caldwell?" Tanya asked. Her voice was polite but guarded. She was a mother protecting her son, and Deshaun loved her for that wariness. Robert leaned forward, his expression serious. "I run an engineering firm. We're successful, and I've been fortunate in my life. I also believe in investing in the future, in young people who show potential." Deshaun showed me more than potential that night. He showed me character, which is rarer and more valuable. He pulled out a folder from a messenger bag beside his chair and opened it on the table. "This is information about a STEM summer program at MIT. It's a 6-week intensive program for high school students interested in engineering and technology. It's incredibly competitive, and it's expensive. I'd like to sponsor Deshaun's attendance next summer." Deshaun felt his heart start to pound. MIT. He'd dreamed about MIT since he first learned what it was, but it might as well have been on the moon for all the chance he had of going there. "There's more," Robert continued. "I'd like to offer Deshaun an internship position at my company. It would be part-time, weekends only, so it wouldn't interfere with school. He'd work with our engineers, learn about the field, get real-world experience. The pay would be $15 an hour, significantly more than he's making at the grocery store." Tanya's hand went to her mouth. Deshaun couldn't speak at all. "And finally," Robert said, pulling out another document, "I've set up a small fund to help with some of your family's immediate expenses. I noticed Deshaun's shoes the other night, and his jacket wasn't warm enough for this weather. This isn't charity, Ms. Miller. It's an investment in someone who's already proven they're worth it." The coffee shop noise seemed to fade away. Deshaun could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to kids like him. This was movie stuff, fairy tale stuff, not real life. Tanya was quiet for a long moment, her eyes shining with tears she was trying to hold back. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Mr. Caldwell, I don't know what to say. This is incredibly generous, but it's too much. We can't accept charity." "It's not charity," Robert insisted. "Let me tell you something I haven't told many people. I grew up poor, not struggling, not getting by, but genuinely poor. My father was a janitor, my mother cleaned houses. We lived in a tiny apartment, and there were nights we went to bed hungry." He paused, and Deshaun could see real emotion on his face. "When I was 16, I was working at a gas station, trying to save money for community college. A customer came in, a businessman. His car wouldn't start. I helped him, spent 2 hours figuring out the problem and fixing it. Wouldn't let him pay me. That man tracked me down, learned about my situation, and he became my mentor. He helped me get into college, guided me through. Starting my business taught me everything about the professional world that kids like me never learn." Robert's eyes were distant, lost in memory. "He passed away 5 years ago. Before he died, he told me to find someone worthy to pass it forward to. He said I'd know them when I met them. I've been looking for 5 years, Ms. Miller. That night, standing on the side of the road watching your son work on my car, asking for nothing in return, I found that person." Tanya wiped her eyes. Deshaun felt his own eyes burning. "This isn't about saving you or rescuing you," Robert continued. "You're doing fine raising an exceptional young man. This is about giving him opportunities that match his potential, about opening doors that should never have been closed in the first place. I can't change the system that makes it harder for kids like Deshaun, but I can help one kid at a time." "Why us?" Tanya asked. "Why my son?" "Because he helped a stranger without thinking about what he'd get out of it. Because he dreams big but stays humble. Because in 10 minutes of conversation, he showed me more integrity than I see in most boardrooms. Because he reminds me of who I was, and who I wish I'd had help becoming sooner." The silence that followed was heavy with possibility. Deshaun looked at his mom, trying to read her face. She was crying now, not bothering to hide it anymore. "If we accept this," Tanya said slowly, "I have conditions." "Name them." Robert said. Deshaun keeps his grades up. No slacking just because he's got opportunities now. He stays respectful, stays humble, stays who he is, and he finds a way to help other kids when he can. This can't just be about him moving up and forgetting where he came from. I wouldn't have it any other way, Robert agreed. And the financial help? It's a loan. We'll pay it back when we can. I don't care if it takes years, Robert smiled. If that makes you more comfortable accepting it, then yes, consider it a loan. Though I doubt I'll ever ask for repayment. Deshaun finally found his voice. I don't understand why you're doing this. I just changed a tire. You did more than that, son. You restored my faith in people a little bit. You reminded me that kindness still exists without an agenda. And you showed me that dreams and determination aren't limited by zip codes or bank accounts. Robert looked at him seriously. You've got something special, Deshaun. Most people never find their purpose. You already know yours at 14. I'm just helping clear the path a little. They talked for another hour, working out the details. Deshaun would start at the company the following weekend. The summer program application would be submitted immediately. The financial assistance would cover essentials, and Tanya reluctantly accepted it when Robert pointed out that helping with utilities and clothes meant Deshaun could focus more on school and less on working. When they finally left the coffee shop, stepping out into the cold November air, Deshaun felt like he was floating. His whole life had just changed over coffee and pastries. His mother held his hand, something she hadn't done in years, and they stood on the sidewalk for a moment. Mom, did that really just happen? Deshaun asked. Tanya laughed, a sound of pure joy and disbelief. I think it did, baby. I think it really did. I'm scared, Deshaun admitted. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not smart enough for MIT? What if I embarrass myself at the company? His mother turned to face him, putting both hands on his shoulders. Listen to me. You are brilliant. You are capable. You are worthy of every opportunity coming your way. Don't you dare doubt yourself now. You've worked hard for this, even if you didn't know what you were working toward. On the bus ride home, Deshaun watched the city pass by the window. The same streets he'd known his whole life suddenly looked different, full of possibility instead of limitation. He thought about his dad, wished he could tell him what had happened. His dad would have been so proud. That night, Deshaun lay in bed, unable to sleep. His mind raced with everything that had happened, everything that was going to happen. MIT, a real engineering internship, a mentor who believed in him. It was overwhelming and exciting and terrifying all at once. He thought about that night, about deciding to stop and help a stranger. Such a small choice, such a simple act, but it had changed everything. It made him realize that you never know which moment is going to matter, which choice is going to alter your entire path. Every moment is important. Every choice counts. And somewhere across the city, Robert Caldwell sat in his study looking at the receipt with Deshaun's phone number on it. He smiled, thinking about the young man who'd helped him, who'd refused payment, who'd shown him that character still existed in a world that often seemed to value all the wrong things. He thought about his own mentor, gone now but never forgotten, and he hoped the old man would be proud of this choice. Tomorrow, a new chapter would begin. For both of them. The first day at Caldwell Engineering Solutions felt like stepping onto another planet. Deshaun stood in front of the gleaming glass building downtown, his reflection staring back at him from the pristine windows. The building was all modern angles and steel, the kind of place he'd walked past 100 times but never imagined entering. His mom had taken him shopping the day before, using some of the money from Robert's assistance fund. New khakis, new button-up shirts, new shoes that actually fit properly and didn't have holes in the soles. Deshaun had protested, feeling guilty about spending money on himself, but Tanya insisted. You're going to be working with professionals, she'd said. You need to look the part. Now, dressed in his new clothes, Deshaun pulled open the heavy glass door and stepped into the lobby. It was pristine with marble floors and modern furniture. A security guard sat at a desk and Deshaun walked up, trying to look more confident than he felt. Hi, I'm Deshaun Miller. I'm here for an internship with Mr. Caldwell. The guard checked his computer and smiled. Yes, Mr. Caldwell told us you'd be coming. Take the elevator to the 7th floor. He's expecting you. The elevator ride felt impossibly long. Deshaun watched the numbers climb, his stomach doing flips. What if everyone there looked at him and knew he didn't belong? What if they treated him like a charity case? What if Robert had oversold his abilities and people were disappointed? The elevator doors opened onto a bright, open office space. People in business casual clothes moved between cubicles and conference rooms. Computer screens glowed everywhere. The hum of productivity filled the air. A young woman at a reception desk looked up and smiled. "You must be Deshawn. I'm Patricia. Mr. Caldwell is in a meeting, but he asked me to show you around and get you set up." For the next hour, Patricia gave him a tour. She introduced him to what felt like 100 people, most of whose names he immediately forgot. Everyone was friendly, but Deshawn couldn't shake the feeling that they were all wondering what a 14-year-old kid was doing there. Finally, Robert appeared, striding down the hallway with a warm smile. "Deshawn, welcome. How are you feeling?" "Nervous, sir," Deshawn admitted. Robert laughed. "Good, nervous means you care. Come on, I want you to meet someone special." He led Deshawn through the office to a corner space where a black man in his 30s sat surrounded by computer monitors showing complex engineering diagrams. The man looked up as they approached, and his face broke into a friendly grin. "Deshawn, this is Andre Thompson, one of our senior mechanical engineers. Andre, this is the young man I told you about." Andre stood and shook Deshawn's hand firmly. "Good to meet you, man. Robert's been singing your praises all week. Said you've got the heart of an engineer and the mind to match. Andre's going to be your direct mentor here," Robert explained. "You'll shadow him, learn from him, help with whatever he needs. Andre's one of the best engineers I've ever had the privilege of working with." "Don't let him butter me up too much," Andre said with a wink. "But seriously, I'm excited to work with you. We don't get many kids your age interested in this stuff, and even fewer willing to put in the real work to learn it." Robert left them to it, and Andre pulled up a chair for Deshawn next to his own. "All right, let's start simple. Tell me what you know about engineering." Deshawn talked hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence. He explained his interest in renewable energy, his dreams of making sustainable technology accessible to everyone, his self-taught knowledge from YouTube videos and library books. Andre listened intently, nodding and asking questions. "You know what I love about that?" Andre said when Deshawn finished. "You're not in this for the money or the prestige. You want to solve real problems for real people. That's the kind of engineer the world needs more of." They spent the rest of the morning going over basic engineering principles. Andre had a way of explaining complex concepts that made them click in Deshawn's mind. He used real-world examples and analogies that made sense. He treated Deshawn like a colleague, not a kid. During lunch, Andre took Deshawn to the company cafeteria. It was nothing like the school cafeteria Deshawn was used to. There was a salad bar, a grill, fresh fruit, fancy coffee machines. Andre noticed Deshawn's wide-eyed look and smiled. "Takes some getting used to, right? When I first started here, I felt like I'd wandered onto a movie set." Andre grabbed a tray. "Get whatever you want. It's all covered." They sat at a table by the window overlooking the city. Andre told Deshawn his own story. He'd grown up in Detroit, not far from where Deshawn lived now. His father had worked in a factory and his mother was a nurse. He'd been the first in his family to go to college, fighting through doubt and financial struggles to earn his engineering degree. "I see a lot of myself in you," Andre said. "That hunger to prove yourself, to make something better of your life while staying true to where you came from. It's not easy, man. There are going to be days when you feel like you don't belong, when people make assumptions about you based on where you're from or what you look like, but you belong anywhere you earn your place. And Robert wouldn't have brought you here if he didn't believe you could earn it." Those words stayed with Deshawn. Over the following weeks, he settled into a routine. School during the week, the grocery store on Friday afternoons, and Caldwell engineering all day Saturday and Sunday. It was exhausting, but it was the best kind of exhaustion. He was learning real engineering, working on actual projects, contributing in small but meaningful ways. Andre was patient but demanding. He gave Deshawn assignments that challenged him, pushing him to research and problem solve on his own. When Deshawn struggled, Andre would guide him without simply giving answers. "I'm not here to make it easy," Andre said once. "I'm here to make you better." The other engineers accepted Deshawn surprisingly quickly. They'd see him puzzling over a problem and would drop by to offer insights. They'd invite him to brainstorming sessions and actually listen to his ideas. A few times, Deshawn's suggestions even made it into final designs. The first time that happened, seeing his contribution acknowledged in a project report, he almost cried. But the real transformation was happening with Robert. Once a month, Robert would take Deshaun out for dinner, just the two of them. They'd go to nice restaurants, the kind where Deshaun had to look up how to pronounce the menu items beforehand. Robert taught him about professional etiquette, about networking, about how to carry himself in business situations. It's not about becoming someone you're not, Robert explained over steak one evening. It's about learning to code switch. You can be yourself, be authentic, and still know how to navigate professional spaces. It's a skill, and it's one that nobody teaches kids from our backgrounds. Robert shared stories from his own journey, the mistakes he'd made, the lessons he'd learned the hard way, the people who'd helped him and the ones who'd tried to hold him back. He was honest about the challenges Deshaun would face, about the prejudices that still existed in professional spaces, about having to work twice as hard to get half the credit. But here's what they don't tell you, Robert said. When you do succeed despite all that, when you prove yourself against those odds, you become unstoppable. You develop resilience that privileged kids never build because they never have to. That struggle becomes your strength. 3 months into the internship, Robert called Deshaun into his office. On the desk was an acceptance letter. The MIT summer program had accepted Deshaun's application. He'd been selected from thousands of applicants to be one of 50 students in the program. Deshaun read the letter 3 times, unable to believe it was real. "I got in," he whispered. "You earned it," Robert corrected. "Your application was outstanding. Your essay about using engineering to solve environmental justice issues in underserved communities was compelling and mature. You got in on merit, Deshaun. Never forget that." That night, Deshaun showed his mother the letter. She read it through tears, then pulled him into a hug so tight he could barely breathe. "Your father would be so proud," she whispered. "I'm so proud." But success brought new pressures. At school, some of his friends started treating him differently. They made jokes about him being too good for them now, about him selling out, about him forgetting where he came from. It hurt in ways Deshaun hadn't expected. He talked to Andre about it during lunch one Saturday. "Yeah, that happens," Andre said, nodding sympathetically. "It's like they're mad at you for trying to do better. But here's what you need to understand. It's not really about you. It's about their own fears and insecurities. Seeing you succeed makes them confront their own choices, their own limitations, real or imagined. That's uncomfortable for people. What did you do when it happened to you? I stayed true to myself and true to them. I didn't abandon my friends or pretend I was better than them. But I also didn't apologize for my success or dim my light to make them comfortable. Real friends will come around. They'll see that you're still you, just with more opportunities. The ones who can't handle it, they weren't really your friends to begin with." Deshaun took that advice to heart. He made an effort to stay connected to his neighborhood, to his friends, to his roots. He tutored kids at the community center on his one day off, helping them with math and science homework. He talked honestly about the challenges he faced, not just the wins. Slowly, most of his friends came around. They started asking him questions about engineering, about college, about opportunities. Some even started taking school more seriously. The financial help from Robert was making a huge difference at home, too. Tanya had been able to cut back to 1 job instead of 2. The stress lines on her face were softening. She'd enrolled in night classes at the community college, pursuing a degree in nursing she'd always dreamed about. The whole family was transforming. But Deshaun never forgot what had started it all. That cold November night, that flat tire, that split-second decision to stop and help. He thought about it often, especially when things got hard or overwhelming. It reminded him that small acts of kindness ripple outward in ways you can never predict. That character matters. That who you are when nobody's watching defines your entire life. One Saturday afternoon, Deshaun was working on a design problem in the office when Robert stopped by his desk. "Walk with me," Robert said. They took the elevator to the roof where there was a small patio area with tables and chairs. The city spread out below them, a tapestry of buildings and streets and lives intersecting in countless ways. "I wanted to talk to you about something," Robert said, leaning against the railing. "You've exceeded every expectation I had, and my expectations were high. Andre tells me you're a natural. The other engineers respect you. You're humble but confident, eager but not arrogant. You're exactly what I hoped you'd be. Thank you, sir. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. I know. That's what makes you special." Robert paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm going to be honest with you about something. I started this as a way to pay forward what was done for me, help one deserving kid, give them opportunities, feel good about myself. But it's become more than that. You've become like family to me, Deshaun. Watching you grow, watching you succeed. It's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. Deshaun felt his throat tighten with emotion. You've changed my life, Mr. Caldwell. I don't even know how to thank you properly. You don't thank me by saying words. You thank me by becoming the engineer you're meant to be, by helping others the way I'm helping you, by staying true to yourself even as your circumstances change. That's how you thank me. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the city below. Deshaun thought about where he'd been 6 months ago, working at a grocery store, dreaming of a future that seemed impossible. And now here he was, preparing for MIT, learning from the best, building a future that suddenly felt within reach. The hard part is just beginning, you know, Robert said. MIT will be challenging.
College will be harder.
Starting your career will be harder still. There will be moments when you want to quit, when the obstacles seem too big, when you wonder if you really belong. How do I get through those moments? You remember why you started? You remember that flat tire and the choice you made to help a stranger. You remember that character and determination got you here, and they'll carry you through whatever comes next. Robert smiled. And you remember that you're not alone. You've got people in your corner now. Me, Andre, your mother, and everyone else who believes in you. We're not going anywhere. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Deshaun felt something settle inside him. Confidence, maybe. Or purpose. Or just the solid knowledge that he was on the right path. That his life had meaning, that his dreams were valid and achievable. He'd stopped to help a stranger change a tire. Such a simple thing. And it had opened up a whole new world. The summer at MIT changed everything Deshaun thought he knew about himself. He'd been nervous on the flight there, his first time on an airplane, watching the ground fall away beneath him. His mom had cried at the airport, proud tears mixed with worry about her baby being so far from home for 6 weeks. The campus was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. Brick buildings that had stood for over a century, students who seemed impossibly smart and confident, an atmosphere of excellence that felt almost thick enough to touch. Deshaun's roommate was a kid from California whose parents were both professors. The guy across the hall had already published a paper on quantum computing. At 15, the first week Deshaun called his mom almost every night, overwhelmed and homesick. I don't belong here, he said. Everyone else is so much smarter than me. They've all had tutors and private schools and opportunities I can't even imagine. Baby, they accepted you for a reason, Tanya reminded him. You earned your place there just like everyone else. Maybe you got there a different way, but you got there. Now show them what you can do. Robert called too, sensing Deshaun's struggle. Listen to me. Imposter syndrome is real, and it hits people like us harder because we're used to being underestimated. But you're not an imposter. You're a kid with talent and drive who happened to get a break. Now you're somewhere you deserve to be, doing what you were meant to do. So stop apologizing for taking up space and start owning it. Those words hit home. Deshaun stopped comparing himself to everyone else and started focusing on his own growth. He threw himself into the coursework, studying late into the night, asking questions in class even when he was afraid of looking stupid, seeking out professors during office hours. And something amazing happened. He started to thrive. The program focused on renewable energy systems, exactly Deshaun's passion. He worked on a team project designing a low-cost solar power system for developing countries. His perspective, coming from a community where people struggled to pay electric bills, brought something unique to the discussions. He understood the real-world implications in ways his more privileged classmates didn't. His team leader, a girl from New York named Hannah, told him halfway through, "You know what's cool about you? You don't just see engineering problems as abstract puzzles. You see the people affected by them. That's going to make you an incredible engineer." By the end of the program, Deshaun had not only kept up with his peers but had excelled. His team's project won first place in the final competition. He'd made friends from across the country and around the world. He'd proven to himself that he belonged in spaces like this. When he got back home in August, he was different, more confident, more assured in his abilities, more certain of his path. His mom noticed it immediately. "You're standing taller," she said, hugging him at the airport. "I feel taller," Deshaun admitted. Back at Caldwell Engineering, Andre immediately saw the change too. "MIT did you good, man. You've got that look now. That engineer look. Like you see problems and your brain automatically starts solving them." The internship took on new dimensions. Andre started giving Deshaun more complex assignments, treating him less like a student and more like a junior colleague. Deshaun contributed to real projects, his name appearing on design documents and reports. He attended client meetings, sitting quietly but absorbing everything about how professionals communicated and solved problems. Sophomore year of high school started, and Deshaun was juggling more than ever. Advanced classes, the internship, college prep, and a new project he'd started on his own. He'd noticed that a lot of kids in his neighborhood had no idea about opportunities like internships, summer programs, or scholarships. They didn't know these things existed, or they assumed such opportunities weren't for people like them. So Deshaun started a workshop. Every Wednesday after school, he'd gather interested students in the library and teach them about STEM fields, college applications, and opportunity programs. He brought in Andre and other engineers from Caldwell to speak. He helped kids prepare applications and practice interviews. He showed them that kids from their neighborhood could dream big and actually achieve those dreams. His mom was so proud she could barely stand it. "You're doing exactly what we talked about," she said, reaching back to pull others up with you. But success wasn't without challenges. Deshaun's workload was crushing. There were nights he didn't sleep more than 4 hours, trying to keep up with homework, the internship, his workshop, and college applications. He was applying to top engineering schools, MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Georgia Tech. Each application required essays, recommendations, test scores, portfolios of work. In November, almost exactly a year after he'd met Robert, Deshaun hit a wall. He was exhausted, overwhelmed, running on fumes. He'd gotten a B on a calculus test, his first B in years, and he'd completely broken down in the bathroom at school, crying from stress and exhaustion. That weekend at the company, Robert noticed something was wrong. Deshaun was quieter than usual, making careless mistakes, seeming detached. Robert called him into his office and closed the door. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Deshaun tried to say he was fine, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, everything poured out. The pressure, the exhaustion, the fear of failing, the feeling that he was constantly running just to stay in place. "I'm so tired," he admitted. "I don't know if I can keep doing this." Robert listened quietly, then leaned back in his chair. "You want to know something? I had a breakdown in my junior year of college. Complete meltdown. I was working 2 jobs, taking a full course load, trying to prove I belonged. I made myself sick. Literally ended up in the hospital with stress-induced symptoms." Deshaun looked up, surprised. Robert always seemed so put together, so in control. "My mentor at the time told me something I never forgot. He said success isn't about doing everything perfectly all the time. It's about knowing your limits, asking for help when you need it, and being strategic about where you put your energy. You can't pour from an empty cup, Deshaun. You have to take care of yourself first." "But there's so much to do. The applications, school, work here, the workshop. Let's talk about priorities. What absolutely has to happen right now, and what can wait or be delegated." Robert pulled out a notepad. "Your health comes first. Not negotiable. Your schoolwork comes second because your grades matter for college. What else is essential?" They went through everything together. Robert suggested Deshaun cut his internship hours in half until application season was over. He offered to have Andre help with the workshop, bringing in other engineers to share the teaching load. He reminded Deshaun that it was okay to not be superhuman, that even asking for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. "You're 16 years old," Robert said gently. "You're already doing more than most adults I know. Stop trying to be perfect and just focus on being your best, which includes being healthy and sane." That conversation shifted something fundamental. Deshaun learned to set boundaries, to say no sometimes, to ask for help when he needed it. His grades stabilized. His stress levels decreased. Ironically, by trying to do less, he ended up accomplishing more because he was working smarter, not just harder. Winter brought college application deadlines. Deshaun submitted his applications with a mix of hope and terror. His essays were strong, telling his story honestly and compellingly. His recommendations from Robert, Andre, and his teachers were glowing. His test scores were excellent. His portfolio showed real engineering work. But he knew competition was fierce and nothing was guaranteed. While waiting for responses, Deshaun focused on the workshop he'd started. It had grown from 5 kids to over 20, Some of them were now applying for summer programs themselves. 2 had gotten internships at local companies after Deshaun helped them prepare. Seeing other kids succeed felt almost as good as his own success. In February, Tanya finished her nursing prerequisites and got accepted into the RN program at the community college. They celebrated with pizza, the fancy kind from the place that didn't deliver to their neighborhood. Sitting around their wobbly kitchen table, mother and son both pursuing their dreams, they felt rich in ways that had nothing to do with money. "Look at us," Tanya said, shaking her head in wonder. "A year ago I was working myself to death just to keep the lights on. You were convinced college was going to have to wait. Now here we are." "All because of a flat tire," Deshaun said. "No, baby. Because you chose to be kind when you didn't have to be. Because you saw someone who needed help and you helped them. No questions asked. That's what changed everything. Your character." March arrived, and with it, college decision letters. Deshaun got his first rejection from Caltech. It stung, but Robert reminded him that rejection was part of life, especially at that level. "The right school will see your value," he said. A week later, an acceptance from Georgia Tech. Deshaun celebrated, relieved to know he had a solid option. Then Stanford accepted him with a full scholarship. He screamed so loud his mom came running from the other room thinking something was wrong, but the letter he was really waiting for came in late March. The thick envelope from MIT. His hands shook as he opened it. Accepted, full ride. Invitation to join their renewable energy research program. Deshaun sat on his bed holding the letter and cried. Not sad tears or stressed tears, but tears of joy and disbelief and overwhelming gratitude. Everything he'd dreamed about was coming true. All the hard work, all the sleepless nights, all the doubt and fear and struggle it had led here. He called Robert immediately. "I got in. MIT accepted me. Full scholarship." "I never doubted it for a second," Robert said, and Deshaun could hear the pride in his voice. "You've earned every bit of this, son. Every single bit." The last few months of high school felt surreal. Deshaun was accepted to speak at the school's graduation as student representative. His speech focused on opportunity and character, about how one moment of kindness had opened doors he'd never imagined walking through. He talked about paying it forward, about lifting others up, about refusing to let circumstances define your potential. His mom sat in the audience, crying through the entire speech. Robert was there too, sitting with Andre and several other engineers from the company. They all wore matching proud expressions. At the company that final weekend before graduation, the engineers threw Deshaun a going-away party. They'd all chipped in for a laptop for college, a top-of-the-line machine that would handle any engineering software he'd need. Andre gave him a book on advanced mechanical engineering with an inscription inside. "To my friend and colleague. You've already changed lives. Keep going." Robert gave him 2 gifts. The first was a professional toolkit, the kind real engineers used. "You'll need this at MIT," he explained. The second was a letter sealed in an envelope. "Don't open this until you get to campus," Robert instructed. "Read it when you're feeling overwhelmed or doubting yourself, because those moments will come." "I don't know how to thank you," Deshaun said, his voice thick. "You changed my entire life." "You changed mine too," Robert replied. "You reminded me why I do this work. Why success without purpose is empty. Why the next generation matters more than the next quarter's profits. You gave me hope, Deshaun. That's a gift I can never repay." They hugged, and Deshaun realized that Robert had become more than a mentor. He'd become family, a father figure filling the space Deshaun's dad had left behind, not replacing him, never replacing him, but present in the way Deshaun needed. Graduation day was perfect. Hot and sunny with a light breeze. Deshaun walked across the stage to receive his diploma, valedictorian of his class. Full scholarship to MIT. The crowd erupted in applause, but the loudest cheers came from his section, where his mom and Robert and Andre and all his workshop kids were standing